They said it was just a trial day, a little tour, a warm lunch, a chance to see how it felt. By evening, the doors had locked behind me, and no one came back. That was 4 months ago. I haven't seen the sun since. The day began with pink lipstick and too much hope. My daughter-in-law insisted on curling my hair, even though I said it wasn't necessary. "Let's make you feel special," she chirped. I should have known then. She's never made me feel anything but in the way. Elliot, my son, drove. Quiet, almost tender, as if soothing a pet before surrendering it. I remember the way his fingers gripped the steering wheel. Too tight, too fast on turns. He didn't look at me much. The place itself didn't look bad. Neutral paint, wide halls, cheerful reception. A woman named Cheryl met us at the door and smiled like she'd been practicing it all week. "We're so glad to welcome you, Mrs. Heller," she said. "Today's just a visit, nothing binding, you're in control." I nodded. Of course I did. You nod when you're 72 and they talk to you like a favor. I let them take my overnight bag, just in case. I should have held on tighter. They showed me a room, small but clean, a bed with too many pillows, a nightstand with a laminated welcome card. "We're glad you're here." I sat in the armchair while Cheryl talked through orientation. I smiled, listened, said all the polite things. Elliot stood in the corner, checking his phone. At lunchtime, they served chicken in a lemon sauce and soft rolls. My tray had a handwritten note. "Hope you enjoy your stay." It felt like a threat. I couldn't finish more than a few bites. By 2 o'clock, Elliot was gone. No goodbye, no eye contact, just a muffled excuse and a quick step into the hallway. Cheryl patted my shoulder. "He'll be back around 6 to pick you up." I waited. At 6:15, I asked the receptionist to call my son. "No answer," she said, after trying twice. "He's probably on the way. Why don't you watch TV in the lounge?" At 7:30, Cheryl returned. "Let's go ahead and get you settled in for the night. I'll make sure the staff has your medications." I told her I hadn't brought any. Her smile faltered for the briefest second. "No problem," she said quickly. "We've got everything in the system. Your file was sent ahead." I didn't remember anyone asking me for a file. I asked again about Elliot. "Still no answer," the receptionist said. At 8:30, they brought me a cup of chamomile tea and a small blue pill. "Just to help you rest." I didn't take it. By 9, I was in bed, fully clothed. The room was quiet. Too quiet. I got up, opened the door, peeked into the hallway. Locked. I tried again. The handle turned, but something held it from the outside. I knocked once. Waited. Nothing. Just the faint sound of distant televisions and a hallway camera blinking red. My trial day was over, and they never said when I'd be allowed to leave. At sunrise, I knocked again. Not out of panic. That had drained out of me sometime in the night. But out of plain, stubborn need. Someone had locked me in, and someone would unlock me. Eventually. At 6:45, the door clicked. A young aide entered with a clipboard and a tray. Oatmeal, orange juice, a pill cup. She didn't ask if I wanted it, just set it down, scribbled on her chart, and said, "Breakfast, Mrs. Heller. Vitals next." Then she was gone. I didn't eat. At 7:10, another woman came in. Taller, older, but not by much. "Let's get those vitals," she said. Her name tag read Erica. She had the tired tone of someone who's stopped pretending to care, but still pretends to pretend. "My door was locked," I said. "That's for safety," she replied, without meeting my eyes. "Standard protocol at night." I didn't consent to stay overnight. She didn't answer. The rest of the morning moved like molasses. A group activity at 9:30. which turned out to be 5 residents tossing a balloon to each other in a beige room with faded motivational posters. I sat in the corner. No one asked why I wasn't joining. No one seemed to notice at all. At 11, I asked the front desk for a phone. "Your son left instructions," the woman behind the desk said. "He didn't want you overwhelmed with too much contact on your first day. He'll check in soon." Too much contact. As if I were a delicate wire that might short from a phone call. "He said he'd pick me up," I reminded her. The woman gave a tight smile. "Sometimes families need a little help with transitions. It's normal." Normal. I walked back to my room. The door wasn't locked this time, but I noticed a blinking light above the frame. A camera. Not hidden. Just unspoken. I opened the closet. No coat, no bag, no phone charger. Nothing but a generic sweater folded on the shelf. My blouse from yesterday was gone. At lunch, I met Mabel. She was 84, wiry as a cattail, with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. "You knew?" she asked between spoonfuls of pea soup. "Apparently," I said. "Trial day?" I nodded. She snorted. "That's what they told me 3 years ago." That was the first crack in the surface. The first real breath I'd taken since arriving. "Did you agree to stay?" I asked. "Don't remember agreeing to much," she said. "One day I was visiting. Next, they were telling me I'd been declared not safe alone. My daughter signed the papers." "Papers?" She nodded. "They keep them ready. People come in on visits. Some never leave." The soup turned to lead in my stomach. At 2, a woman named June from Resident Services stopped by. "We're reviewing your care plan," she said. "You'll meet our house physician tomorrow for a simple evaluation." "I want to leave," I said calmly. Her smile never wavered. "Of course. That's always an option. After the evaluation, and once we confirm capacity. The first few days can be disorienting." She left me a folder. Inside, blank forms, a calendar of activities, and a page titled Your Wellness Path. It had checkboxes for everything from hydration goals to emotional realignment. I stared at that last phrase for a long time. By dinner, I'd stopped asking questions. Not because I was afraid, because I was listening, watching. Mabel passed me a butter packet and whispered, "Wait until the 3rd day. That's when they stop pretending." I believed her, because I already felt it. The pretending had started to peel at the edges. On the 3rd day, they took my signature. I don't remember giving it, but there it was, photocopied on a form titled Residential Authorization and Limited Guardianship Consent. I found it in the file they handed me after breakfast, as if I'd requested it. "Just for your records," Cheryl said sweetly, tapping the folder. "Everything's in place now. You're officially part of the family." I stared at the page. My name in my handwriting. Only it wasn't. Not the way I loop my R's. Not the way I always cross the H in Heller. It was close, but not mine. Like a song played just a little off-key. "You had me sign this?" I asked. "Of course. On your first day," she replied. "You were a little flustered, but we reviewed everything. It's all standard." I opened my mouth and closed it. I knew better than to fight with a mask. And Cheryl's smile was just that, a mask made of teeth and pink lipstick. Later, I asked Erica if she'd seen me sign anything. She hesitated, just a beat too long. "I'm not involved in intake. Sorry." "Of course not. I didn't bring it up again." But I watched more carefully. I listened during bingo and hallway conversations and meal cues. People spoke softly here, not because they were frail, but because they knew walls had ears. Mabel told me that accidental paperwork was common. They get a signature one way or another, she said. Then they use it like a key to lock the rest of your life. That afternoon, I asked again to use the phone. The receptionist offered to pass along a message. I want to call my bank, I said louder. She blinked. What for? I didn't answer, just stared. After a moment, she picked up the receiver, then paused. Actually, I've just been informed that your financial proxy has been transferred to your son. Any inquiries have to go through him. Proxy. Transferred. I felt the air leave my chest, like someone had knocked my lungs inside out. I didn't authorize that. Again, the smile. That would have been in the intake paperwork. You did sign, Mrs. Heller. I walked away before I started yelling. Back in my room, I checked the closet again. Still no purse, no phone. Even my cardigan was missing. The blue one with mother-of-pearl buttons. I'd worn it in the car. Where had it gone? At dinner, I sat with Mabel and a new woman, Joni. Broad-shouldered, soft-voiced, in her early 80s. She listened quietly while Mabel talked about the cycle. They get your papers, Mabel said. Then they get your meds. Then they get your story. You start doubting your own version of things. That ever happened to you? I asked Joni. She looked at me for a long time. They told me my daughter stopped calling, said she moved to Arizona, sent a card from there myself once. She never got it. Found it later in the staff break room. We all sat quietly for a moment. Somewhere down the hall, someone was crying. Not loud. Just small, steady sounds like a leaky faucet of grief. I went back to my room early. The hallway lights were dimmed, the blinking red camera still watching. Inside, the folder with the fake signature sat on my nightstand. I tore it in half. Then I opened the closet again, not for what was gone, but for what remained. On the top shelf, pushed behind a towel, was a folded envelope. My name in pencil. Inside, a note. You're not crazy. If you're reading this, you're awake. Don't sign anything, and don't ask too many questions in front of Cheryl. No name, no return message. Just that. I read it 3 times. Then I tucked it under my pillow. Sleep didn't come easily, but when it did, it came with a single thought. Someone else had seen through the mask, and someone else had left a breadcrumb for me to follow. The house physician arrived in silence. No knock, no announcement, just a soft shuffle of leather soles and the antiseptic scent of mint soap. He entered my room like someone who already owned it. Dr. Klein, he said, adjusting his glasses. Just a wellness check. I sat on the edge of the bed, back straight. I didn't request this. He smiled the way people do when they've stopped listening before you start. It's routine. He asked me to count backward from 100 by sevens. Asked what day it was, who the president was. Held up a pen and asked me to name it. I answered every question with clipped precision. Then he looked at my chart. There have been some notes, he said, flipping pages. Mood instability, paranoia, aggression. I blinked. Notes from whom? He shrugged, as if the origin didn't matter. Staff observations. These things are subtle at first, especially in early-stage decline. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I folded my hands. I managed my own business for 22 years, taught myself Excel at 60. I can still do long division in my head. I'm not here to challenge your intelligence, he said mildly, but certain behaviors can indicate deeper concerns. What behaviors? Dr. Klein didn't answer, just scribbled something and stood. We'll monitor things for now. No need to escalate unless symptoms progress. Symptoms? but he was already walking out, clipboard tucked under one arm like a verdict. I waited 5 minutes after he left, then went straight to Mabel. She was in the library, thumbing through a battered mystery novel, the kind with yellowed pages and broken spine. "He came to you too?" she asked without looking up. I nodded. "Let me guess. You're unstable, suspicious, possibly paranoid." "And aggressive," she snorted. "That's new. I usually just get resistant to treatment." Joni joined us a few minutes later. She had something folded in her sweater sleeve, a copy of the resident handbook she'd managed to keep from her intake. She slid it across the table. "Page 19, she said, Section 3B. Medical evaluations used to recommend temporary guardianship extensions. If 2 staff members submit behavioral concerns, the doctor can sign off on increased oversight." "And oversight means?" I asked. "No phone, no money, no rights," Mabel said. "Until they say otherwise." I sat back in the chair, pressing my thumb to the table edge. A slow burn started in my chest. Not fear, not yet. Something older, colder, humiliation. That night, I waited until the hallway cleared. I pretended to take the pill. I left the light off, and when the aide came in to check, I pretended to be asleep. After she left, I opened the envelope again. The note was still there, still unsigned. But the pencil marks were heavier than I remembered, as if someone had pressed down with more urgency. I flipped the paper over. On the back, faint and barely legible, was a phone number. 7 digits. Local exchange. No name. I didn't have a phone, but maybe someone did. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone in this place as they wanted me to believe. It took me 2 days to find the phone. Not because they were hidden. Quite the opposite. Staff carried them in plain sight, strapped to belts, slipped into pockets, blinking in hands as they scrolled between rounds. It was the residents who weren't trusted with them. But Barbara had one. She was 91, partially deaf, nearly blind, and the niece she hated sent her a phone so I could FaceTime and see her Botox. Barbara never answered it, didn't know how. She kept it in a ceramic candy dish under her bed. I learned this on a Wednesday afternoon when she mistook me for her sister and told me everything she hated about Florida, where her niece lived. Too flat, too wet, too many golf carts. After that, I started visiting her every evening, not with questions, just small talk, company. I earned the right to sit close enough to the bed to slide my hand under the candy dish. Thursday night, while Barbara snored, I took the phone. It was ancient, thick, no passcode, battery at 11%. I tiptoed back to my room and dialed the number from the envelope. 1 ring, 2, 3. "Hello?" A woman's voice, low, guarded. I hesitated. "My name is Edna Heller. I found your note." Silence. Then, "How many pillows on your bed?" 4. "Too many." A soft exhale. Relief. "Good," she said. "You're awake." Her name was Nadine. She'd been here 2 years ago. Same room, same folder, same fake signature. Her niece had used a fabricated diagnosis to claim guardianship, emptied her accounts, then left the country. Nadine had fought back, documented, called, filed. But by the time she was discharged, the damage was done. She moved to New Mexico, started again with what she had left. Before leaving, she hid notes. "I hoped someone would find them," she said. "You're the first who did." I told her about the forged signature, the proxy, the false diagnosis. "You need eyes outside," she said. "Someone not on their payroll." "I don't have anyone, not anymore." Nadine was quiet a moment. "Do you remember your banking institution?" "Yes." "Then listen. Tomorrow, ask to check on your automatic insurance renewals. Make it sound casual. See what name the account pulls up. If it's not yours, you have a case. If it's his, your son's, you've got proof. And then, you call the ombudsman. You say the words unauthorized guardianship and financial coercion. That gets attention. The phone buzzed low. 5% battery. I don't know if it'll work, Nadine said. But it's what I'd do now. Don't wait. They move fast once you stop playing along. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because someone should have helped me. The line cut off. I sat in the dark with the phone in my hand and the weight of someone else's memory pressing against my ribs. Barbara never noticed it was gone. The next morning, I went to the front desk. Smiled, light, friendly, like a woman asking for her knitting pattern. I just realized I might have missed renewing my supplemental insurance, I said. Can you check what account I have listed? Want to make sure the payment didn't bounce. The receptionist nodded, typed, then frowned. Looks like your son's name is primary. Elliot Heller. You're listed as dependent. Really? I said softly. She gave me a polite, empty smile. I thanked her and left. Later that day, I slipped the phone back under Barbara's bed. It was dead now, but I didn't need it anymore. I had what I needed. A name, a line, and the beginning of something they didn't expect. A woman who remembered exactly who she was. The facility had its rhythms. Mornings with pill cups and blood pressure cuffs, afternoons with puzzles no one finished, evenings with television no one chose. At first, I thought it was dullness, routine. But after 6 weeks, I saw it for what it was. Sedation, not chemical necessarily, though that played its part, but structural. Every part of this place was designed to dull the will. Round corners, soft chairs, endless reassurances. Don't worry, just rest. You don't need to think about that right now. I began watching who resisted. There weren't many. Most residents moved through the days like slow dancers in a song they no longer heard. Eyes that once sparked now stayed dim. Stories stopped halfway, replaced by sighs. Even Joni had grown quieter since the physician increased her stability meds. She forgot what day it was last week. Forgot her daughter's name the week before. But Mabel didn't forget. She still sharpened her thoughts like knives, cutting through the murk with dry remarks and loaded stares. They call this a care facility, she told me once, peeling an orange with fingers as thin as wire. But really, it's a vault, except the gold's still breathing. I started keeping notes. Tiny ones. On scraps, I tore from the backs of activity flyers. I wrote down names, shifts, changes in medication, who locked the doors and when. I tucked them behind the lining of my slipper. They never checked the slippers. On Tuesday, I saw Erica slipping a brown envelope into Cheryl's office. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from work, but the kind that comes from biting your tongue too long. When she saw me, she froze. Our eyes met for a second too long. That night, she brought me my pill cup, but her hand lingered an extra moment. Inside the cup, beneath the tablet, was a Post-it note folded to the size of a coin. I waited until she left, unfolded it slowly. Find the intake signature sheet. Bottom drawer, Cheryl's desk. Not locked. My hands trembled, not from fear, from something else, like old adrenaline waking up in my veins. The next morning, I pretended a headache. Skipped balloon circle. Waited until 10:30 when Cheryl took her smoke break on the back porch. I counted 30 seconds after the door clicked. Then I slipped into her office. It smelled like peppermint and toner. The bottom drawer was heavier than I expected. Inside, files, tabbed folders, Post-its, a laminated floor plan. I found the intake packet with my name. There it was. Page 3. Signature of resident. The scrawl was mine, in name only. I took a deep breath and slid the whole page into my waistband. Then I closed the drawer and walked out without looking back. Later, in the bathroom, I pressed the page against the tiled wall and stared. Date, April 3rd. Signature, E. Heller. Witness, C. Martin. I hadn't held a pen on April 3rd. I hadn't even known there'd be a signature. By evening, I sat on the bench near the greenhouse, pretending to read. I folded the page into my crossword book and thought about what Nadine had said. You need eyes outside. I had no lawyer, no advocate, but I had something better, a grandson, Eli. The only one who ever remembered my birthday without being reminded. The one who used to spend weekends building birdhouses in my backyard. The one who always said, "You see more than you say, Gran." I hadn't said much in 4 months, but now I was ready to speak, and Eli was going to hear everything. Eli always answered on the second ring, even when he was in class, even when it was inconvenient. It was one of those things I never asked him to do, but he did anyway, like walking on the traffic side of the sidewalk, like calling just to say, "You crossed my mind today." But I hadn't called him once since I arrived here, because I didn't have a phone. Until now. Barbara's, again. Borrowed on a Tuesday while she napped through Jeopardy reruns. I dialed, heart in my throat. "Gran?" His voice, deepened since college, warm like river stones in summer. "Hi, baby." A pause. "Where are you?" he asked, already cautious. "I need you to listen very carefully. Don't interrupt. Just let me talk for 60 seconds. Can you do that?" Another pause. Then, "Yeah. Okay. Go." I told him everything. Quietly. Slowly. I told him about the signature I never gave, the guardianship I never agreed to, the accounts I no longer controlled. I told him about the locked doors, the note from Nadine, the pill they tried to hand me each night. I told him I needed help, not rescue. Help. Because I wasn't broken. I was captured. When I finished, I waited. All I could hear was his breathing, measured, shallow. Then, "I'm coming. Don't tell anyone, not even the nice ones. I'll be there Friday." He didn't say goodbye. I slipped the phone back where it belonged and slept like I hadn't in weeks. On Friday, I wore lipstick. Not out of vanity, but defiance. Coral pink, the kind that used to make my late husband smile when we went to church. I brushed my hair smooth, tucked the forged signature into the lining of my crossword book, slipped the book under my cardigan. Then I waited in the courtyard, near the lilies. At exactly 3:15, he appeared. Taller than I remembered, leaner, but the same dark eyes. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans, and the look of someone trying to hold down fury with both hands. I stood. We didn't hug. Too risky. Instead, I nodded toward the bench. We sat. "I brought a scanner," he said quietly, pulling a tiny device from his backpack. "And a burner phone. Don't ask where I got it." I wasn't going to. He scanned the page, took 3 photos of it, then another of my ID badge. "I've already spoken to a legal aid volunteer," he said. "They're waiting for this. Once I send it, it triggers a formal inquiry. There'll be paperwork, a review board. You'll be contacted within a week. And if they try to bury it?" He looked me in the eye. "Then we make noise." The wind stirred the hem of my sleeve. I felt suddenly very tired. "Gran," he said gently, "how did you last this long?" I smiled. They underestimated the wrong old woman. He stayed 10 minutes. When he left, he didn't look back. Neither did I. That night, I skipped the pill again. I stared at the red light above the door, unblinking. Let them watch. Let them mark it down. Because someone was watching back now. And soon, they'd see more than they wanted to. The first sign that something had shifted came Monday morning. Cheryl's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Her lipstick was smudged at the edge. She called me Ms. Heller instead of the usual sing-song Edna. It was subtle, but after 4 months in this place, I'd learned to read tremors beneath the surface. At breakfast, Mabel leaned close and whispered, "Someone's pacing behind the scenes." "How do you know?" She tilted her chin toward the hallway. 2 suits in admin already today, and Cheryl's been on her 3rd coffee since dawn. I kept my face still, but inside something stirred. It was working. The call I'd made with Eli, the scan, the file, the flagged guardianship, it hadn't disappeared into a bureaucratic void. It had landed. Hard. After lunch, a woman I'd never seen before asked me to come with her. No badge, no uniform, civilian clothes and a legal pad. "We just have a few routine follow-up questions," she said. "About what?" "Your care plan," she said, "and recent evaluations." She led me to a private room. Bright light, 2 chairs, 1 table. I sat. She didn't offer her name, but I saw a seal on her folder, something state-affiliated. "Do you feel safe here, Mrs. Heller?" I met her eyes. "I've felt watched, managed, and erased, so if that's what you mean by safe, then yes. Very." She didn't blink. "Do you recall signing documents regarding guardianship or power of attorney?" "No, and I have reason to believe my signature was forged." She nodded slightly. "We've received a report. There'll be a handwriting analysis." I reached into my book, my crossword book, and slid the page across the table. She unfolded it, her eyes scanned. Then she pulled out a printed copy of the same form from her folder. Compared. "This helps," she said softly. "Do you know how many others are here under similar circumstances?" I asked. She didn't answer, which meant she knew. "Your son was contacted," she added. "He's hired legal counsel." "Of course he has. We'll be conducting a full review. In the meantime, if you feel threatened or manipulated, you're to notify our investigator immediately." "And if they retaliate?" She looked at me flatly. "They won't. Not now." Back in my room, I closed the door and exhaled, for the first time all day. Outside, the hallway buzzed with the same pretend normal as always. Nurses gliding, wheels squeaking, someone calling out from a recliner, asking for the time. But something was different. At dinner, Joni looked up, alert for the first time in days. "I heard someone say audit," she murmured. Mabel grinned into her soup. "That's the word they hate the most." After lights out, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the months I'd lost, the silences I'd endured, the indignities I'd swallowed like tasteless pills. I thought about my son and the man I'd once raised to be better. Then I thought about Eli, about the way he didn't flinch, about how it takes only one witness to pull someone out of the dark. And I thought, if this is the beginning of the end, for them, not me, I'll be here for every minute of it. The retaliation didn't come all at once. It came slow, quiet, polite. First, they moved my seat in the dining room, claimed it was for even distribution, but suddenly I was placed at a table with residents too far gone to speak. Conversations stopped. The silence was heavy. Then they changed my medication. Erica brought the cup, But this time, the pill was pale pink. "It's the same," she said quickly. "Just a different manufacturer." I didn't swallow it. Slipped it into my napkin, pressed it flat, and tucked it into my bra. 2 hours later, I felt lightheaded anyway. My tea had tasted faintly bitter. I didn't finish it, but maybe it didn't take much. That night, I didn't dream. The next morning, I confronted Erica. "You switched my meds." She looked around. "I'm not allowed to discuss medication with residents." "You already did." Her eyes darted to the camera in the ceiling corner. Then she leaned in. "You need to be careful. Cheryl's nervous. She thinks you're building something." "I am." She hesitated. "Then don't eat anything she hands you. And never take the drinks from the cart after 4 p.m. I nodded. "I want one more thing from you," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "I need a printer." Her lips parted, surprised. "Why?" "Because I have something to write." The next evening, tucked in a cart of jigsaw puzzles no one touched, there was a battered printer, scuffed but functional. No ink cartridge, but Erica slipped me one the next morning in the cover of a gardening magazine. I waited until lights out. Then I plugged it in, printed one page at a time, careful to keep the volume low. 4 copies, each one titled. They told me it was just a trial day. What really happens inside the Linwood facility. I wrote it like a witness. Just facts. Dates, names, timelines, the locked doors, the false diagnosis, the guardianship fraud. No drama, just truth. I left one copy in the library between 2 Danielle Steele novels, another in the staff lounge, slipped into the binder marked Safety Protocol. One I slid under Cheryl's office door. The last I kept. For Eli. 2 mornings later, I was summoned again. Not to a review room this time, to the director's office. I'd never been in there. Dark wood furniture, a polished nameplate that read, Douglas R. Hume, Executive Director. He was younger than I expected. Late 40s, thin hair, a nervous smile. "Mrs. Heller," he began. "Please, sit." I remained standing. He gestured to the chair anyway. "We've received some concerns, and I wanted to offer you the opportunity to clarify a few things. Perhaps redirect this misunderstanding before it becomes unnecessarily complicated." "Misunderstanding?" He folded his hands. It's not uncommon for residents to feel disoriented in the early months, especially when outside parties, like grandchildren, become involved and escalate things that don't need escalation. "I'm lucid," I said calmly, "and I have documentation. I'm aware, and we take accusations seriously. But you need to understand the damage this kind of attention brings to our community. Reputations. Funding. Freedom," I interrupted. "What damage does it do to that?" His face twitched. "Just slightly. You're comfortable here, aren't you? Safe? Fed?" "I was captured," I said, "not housed." He leaned forward. "Let me speak plainly, Mrs. Heller. You're making this very difficult for your son. He's been trying to do what's best for you. If you continue on this path, it may cause a complete breakdown of your relationship." I smiled. That relationship broke the day he locked me in without a key. He looked away first. When I left the room, my knees were shaking, but I kept my head high. In the hallway, Erica passed me a folded note. Just one word inside. Ombudsman. Wednesday. 3 more days. I could make it. 3 days feels short until you're counting hours. I marked each one by the sound of the food cart wheels, the ring of call buttons, the shuffling of slippers down the corridor. I didn't sleep much. Too many things turning over in my mind. Words, mostly. The right ones. Sharp enough to cut through the smiles. Wednesday came. The ombudsman's arrival was quiet. No announcement. No fanfare. Just a woman in a dark blue blazer walking through the front doors like she belonged, carrying a leather briefcase and no expression. Her name was Marlene. Late 50s. No jewelry, no scent. Just focus. They brought me to a conference room with no windows and a pitcher of lukewarm water. "Mrs. Heller," she said, shaking my hand. "I've reviewed the preliminary complaint and supporting documents. I'd like to hear it from you directly now, in your own words." So I told her. Everything. No embellishments, no trembling. Just the truth. The drive with my son. The trial day lie. The locked doors. The missing belongings. The falsified signature. The forced medication. The change in financial control. The proxy. She asked sharp, specific questions, took notes without looking down, occasionally nodded, never interrupted. When I finished, I handed her the final copy of my written account, the one I hadn't left in the library or slipped under office doors. "This is a system," I said quietly. "It's not just me. I've seen others here, bright, aware women, made small, made forgettable, made pliant." Marlene looked me in the eye. "We're opening a formal inquiry. Effective today, the facility is barred from altering your medical or financial status in any way until the investigation concludes." And what does that mean? It means they'll be nervous. And it means you're not invisible anymore. When I stood to leave, she touched my arm. "One last thing. You're brave. Most don't speak. Most think it won't matter." I met her gaze. I kept quiet my whole life. I thought patience would earn me peace. And it earned me a locked room. Outside, the hallway felt narrower somehow, like the walls knew what was coming. At lunch, Mabel raised an eyebrow. "Well?" "She's real," I said. "And she's watching now." That night, someone knocked on my door. Not Erica, not Cheryl. Joni. She stepped inside like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. She held something in her hand. A postcard. Faded beach photo on the front. Printed in crooked cursive. "Greetings from Tucson." On the back. "Wish you were here. Love, Lila." "My daughter," Joni said. "It arrived today. First one I've seen in months." I looked at the postmark. It was dated 8 weeks ago. "It was held back," I whispered. Joni nodded. Her eyes were wet, but her voice steady. "You shook something loose." I reached for her hand. We sat in silence. Not sadness. Recognition. By morning, the whispers had started. In the lounge, the garden room, the dining area. She's not just another old woman. They're finally looking at the paperwork. They're scared now. And they should be. Because I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. It was Friday afternoon when Eli returned. He didn't come through the front this time. Too risky. He came through the side garden gate, where the delivery vans parked and the cameras rarely glanced. I saw him through the window by the West Wing corridor, his face half-shadowed under the brim of a baseball cap. He mouthed one word, "Now." I slipped out quietly, arms steady, heart hammering. Outside, the sky was gray, but it was open. No ceilings, no fluorescent lights, just sky. 4 months without sunlight, and even the muted light made my eyes ache with relief. We ducked behind the brick wall by the maintenance shed. "I only have 10 minutes, he said. "They'll notice I'm not on the log." I nodded. "That's enough." He handed me a slim envelope. Inside, printed emails, a typed affidavit, and 2 notarized forms. One revoking the unauthorized financial proxy, the other requesting a full re-evaluation of my cognitive status by an independent specialist. We found the lawyer who did the guardianship paperwork, Eli said. He's, let's just say, friendly with Cheryl's brother. It's a web. But it's unraveling now. And Elliot? Defensive? Says he trusted the professionals. Claims he didn't realize what was happening. But his name's on every form, every transaction. He didn't trust me to live alone, I said softly. But he trusted a stranger to take my freedom. Eli's jaw tightened. You'll be out within the month. They can't hold this up much longer. I'm not the only one, I said. I know. He looked at me, then really looked. Not like I was someone's mother or someone's problem, but like I was still whole, still here. I used to think strength was loud, he said. But I've watched you. You never needed volume. We hugged, quick and hard. Before he left, he pressed something into my palm. A phone. Small. Prepaid. With one number programmed in. His. For when it happens fast, he said. Then he was gone. Back inside, I slipped the phone into my slipper. No one checked slippers. By dinner, the tone had shifted again. Cheryl wasn't on duty. Erica looked relieved. And Mabel? Mabel raised her glass of lukewarm tea and said, "To the woman who made the walls nervous." We clinked cups. After lights out, I sat by the window with the phone in my hand. I didn't call anyone, just held it. The weight of it, small, silent, felt like something I hadn't had in a long time. Agency. Outside, the night buzzed with distant traffic and wind. I watched the trees sway, thought of all the women who had been tucked away here, folded into silence, smoothed out like wrinkles no one wanted to look at. They were wrong about us. We didn't disappear. We waited. And then we stood up. They called it a conversation. That's how Cheryl phrased it when she knocked on my door Monday morning. 2 quick raps, no warning. The director would like to have a conversation with you. I asked if my ombudsman had requested it. No, this is internal, just a routine check-in. I almost laughed. Routine, a word that means nothing and everything when used by people in control. She led me down the east hallway, past the sitting room, past the chapel where no one prayed, but the light was always on. Mabel caught my eye as I passed. Her face was tight with worry, but she didn't speak. The room wasn't the director's office this time. It was smaller, plainer, colder, windowless. 1 table, 2 chairs, a third already occupied, by Elliot. He stood when I entered, hands twitching slightly, like he hadn't decided whether he was ashamed or angry. I didn't sit. Neither did he. Douglas Hume, the director, motioned to the chairs. Let's all be comfortable. I'm fine, I said. Elliot cleared his throat. Mom, we're here because we want to resolve this. You've created a situation. I've revealed one. He glanced at Douglas, then back at me. This facility has cared for you, fed you, given you safety and structure. Against my will. Douglas stepped in. Mrs. Heller, the documents on file. Were forged. I've submitted the evidence. My ombudsman has acknowledged the discrepancies. Elliot shifted. Look, I didn't know about that. I trusted the people here. They said you were struggling, that you were confused, that it wasn't safe. You looked at me, Elliot. You saw me. You knew I was fine. His lips parted, then shut again. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Douglas said carefully, regardless of the paperwork, emotions are high. What we'd like to propose is a transitional plan. A few more weeks here while we... No. I understand, but... I said no. I turned to my son. You brought me here under the pretense of a visit. You didn't call. You didn't come back. You gave away my name, my rights, my accounts, and now you want a transitional plan. I made a mistake, he said quietly, but you've made it public. There's an investigation now. Do you understand what this does to us? Us, not me, not what it did to me. I do, I said, and I don't care. Douglas opened his folder, desperate now. We can avoid escalation if... I want escalation. The silence cracked. The air in the room tightened. I want every eye that looked away to look now. I want every woman in this building to know she's not wrong for wanting out. I want the name Heller to remind you that not all of us go quietly. Douglas shut the folder. Elliot didn't look at me. When they finally let me leave the room, Cheryl was gone. Erica waited in the hallway, eyes wide. They called that a conversation? They called it a mistake, I said, and I let them know it was. She slipped something into my hand before walking away. A staff memo. An internal schedule marked pending state review. It had my name circled in red. By dinner, the residents knew. Not from me. I didn't say a word. But whispers move faster than facts. Joni passed me a bread roll and said, "You shook them. I can feel it." Mabel raised her glass again, this time with both hands. To the woman who didn't forget who she was. Later that night, I took out the phone Eli had given me, typed one sentence. They tried to manage me. I documented everything. I didn't hit send. Not yet. I just watched the blinking cursor and thought about the next day. About what freedom would look like this time. Not a house, not a key. Just no more doors locked from the outside. Tuesday began with gloves, not the latex kind. White cotton, worn by two men from compliance services, as embroidered on their navy polos. They moved quietly through the west hallway, checking locks, scanning badges, taking photos. One knelt to measure the door width of Joni's room. Another stood outside the medication cart, scribbling furiously. By 10 a.m., the staff lounge door had been propped open. By 11, Cheryl's office had been emptied. Erica passed me in the hall without speaking, but tapped twice on the side of her clipboard, like a drumbeat only I could hear. It's happening. At lunch, a new nurse handed me my tray. Her name tag read, "Temp Staff." No smile, no cooing, just, "Mrs. Heller, chicken or beef?" I chose chicken. I didn't eat it. I sat at my table, the one they'd stuck me at after I made too much noise. But today, someone new had been placed across from me. A woman with sharp shoulders, white braid, and no expression. She looked at me once, then down at her tray, then back up again. "They're opening the files," she said. Not a question. I nodded. My daughter tried the same thing. Signature, diagnosis, full proxy. Only she didn't count on the fact that I used to be a forensic accountant. "Your name?" I asked. "Jean." "I'm Edna." "I know," she said. "Everyone knows now." After lunch, I was called into the conference room again. But this time, the chairs were filled. 3 people from the Ombudsman's office, 2 from the State Elder Rights Board, 1 lawyer in a tan suit who introduced herself as External Review Counsel. No Elliot, no Cheryl. And Douglas? Not in sight. Marlene, the ombudsman, did the talking. "We've concluded the preliminary phase. Your complaint has been upheld. The facility is in violation of multiple statutes regarding consent, guardianship, and financial delegation. Immediate corrective measures are being implemented." I waited. "There is, however, the matter of your discharge." She looked at me, steady and direct. "You are now free to leave, Mrs. Heller. Effective immediately." I didn't exhale, not yet. You'll be assigned a transition advocate to assist with housing, if needed. Your banking access has been restored. All guardianship documentation has been rescinded. Still, I didn't move. The lawyer leaned forward. You did this. No one else. Then I nodded. And finally, I breathed. When I stepped out of the room, Mabel was waiting near the vending machine. Well? I'm leaving. She looked down, then back at me. You'll write about it? I already did. Good. Someone needs to remember. I hugged her. Not long, not soft, just firm. Real. I found Joni in the garden room. She pressed something into my palm. The Tucson postcard, creased at the edges. I want you to keep it, she said. You remembered me before I remembered myself. Outside, a taxi waited. They offered to send a shuttle. I declined. I wanted something with windows. As I stepped into the sunlight, the driver turned the mirror slightly. Big day? He asked. You could say that. He pulled away from the curb. I didn't look back. I kept my eyes on the sky. Even cloudy, it was wide, untamed. The air didn't smell like bleach or coffee or distant grief. It smelled like wind. My hands shook in my lap. Not from fear, from weightlifting. 4 months. 4 months since the trial day that never ended. Now it had. And so had something else. Whatever version of me they thought they had, compliant, quiet, manageable, that version didn't survive. I didn't leave angry. I left alert and free. I didn't go back to the old house. Too many locks, too many ghosts, and Elliot had the keys anyway. Instead, I checked into a long-term stay motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Laminate floors, chipped dresser, a kitchenette that smelled faintly of toast. But the door locked from the inside, and that was enough. The first night, I kept the window cracked just to smell the traffic. The second, I slept without dreaming. By the third, I wrote again. Not notes this time, not reports or warnings, just the truth, as it unfolded now. The feel of plastic cutlery in a quiet room, the way it takes time to trust silence again. The odd thrill of choosing your own bedtime. I sent Eli a photo of my room. He replied, "Not bad for a revolution headquarters. He came by that weekend. We drank tea from paper cups and sat on the floor because the chairs were wobbly." "You're officially off every form," he said. "Bank, health proxy, legal standing, all yours again." "And the facility?" "They're restructuring. Cheryl's under review. Douglas resigned." "You made noise, Gran." "I told the truth." He smiled. We didn't talk about Elliot. There wasn't much to say. 2 days later, I received a letter. Thin, white envelope, postmarked locally, no return address. Inside, a folded sheet of paper and a single sentence. "Thank you for proving we're not invisible." No signature. But I knew who it was from. Or maybe it was from all of them. Mabel, Joni, Jean. Every woman in that place who learned to whisper again. Every voice that got a little louder because one person stood up. I pinned it to the lamp with a clothespin. Some mornings, I read it before brushing my hair. That week, I spoke to a woman from a local paper. Eli had arranged it. "Just an interview," she said. "Just background." She asked careful questions. How I discovered the forgery. How I pushed back. What it felt like to lose yourself on paper, but still feel whole inside. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, but because I'd already shed all the tears I planned to. The story ran Sunday. Page 2. Headline: Trial Day. Turned captivity. One woman's fight for her freedom. They used a photo of me walking out the front doors of Linwood, head high, cardigan buttoned to the throat. I looked like someone's grandmother, which of course I was, and also someone they never saw coming. After that, more letters came. Typed, handwritten, even one scribbled on the back of a grocery list. My sister's going through this now. Can you tell me who to call? I thought I was alone. I started keeping a file, not for evidence, for them. A quiet map of women waking up. Sometimes I sat in the motel laundry room with my notebook on my knees and answered 5 in a row, my fingers stiff but steady. Sometimes I didn't answer at all, just held them. The weight of each letter reminded me that the fight wasn't over, but I wasn't tired, not anymore, and I wasn't small. I'm not a hero. I'm not brave in the way newspapers like to print. I didn't plan a crusade. I didn't march. I didn't shout in hearings or throw chairs. I just refused to disappear. That's all. It started with a locked door and a lie about a trial day, and it ended with a desk drawer full of envelopes I never expected. Thank yous, confessions, stories written in the corners of receipts and postcards and napkins. Women I've never met wrote to say they believed me. Women I've never met wrote to say they believed themselves for the first time in years. The motel let me extend my stay at half rate when I told them why I was there. The front desk girl started leaving me envelopes at night, no questions asked. Sometimes just flyers, sometimes typed pages with yellow highlights. I think this happened to my grandmother, one note said. I never asked. I answer everything I can. I don't sign my full name anymore, just E.H. People seem to know what it means. Joni got out a month after me. Her daughter flew in from Arizona, crying at the terminal, swearing she never knew. Maybe she didn't. Maybe someone intercepted the calls like they intercepted mine. Maybe guilt and love come wrapped in the same brown paper sometimes. Mabel didn't leave. She didn't want to. She said she'd rather stay and keep the new ones awake. Every rebellion needs someone to stir the coffee, she told me. I'm not leaving these girls to the wolves. So she writes me every Thursday. Her handwriting's messy, her grammar worse, but I read every word like scripture. She signs off the same way every time. Still here, still sharp, still dangerous. M. Sometimes I think of Elliot. Not with rage, not anymore. Just distance, like a painting hung in the wrong hallway. He sent a card once. No apology. Just, I hope you're well. If you need anything. I didn't respond. There are kinds of silence that protect. I've started visiting churches, not to pray. I just like how they feel. Quiet. Honest. No cameras. People nod instead of ask. The pews don't care who you were yesterday. One Sunday, a woman in a red scarf sat beside me, trembling. They want to move me, she whispered. My niece says it's just temporary. I gave her my number. Then I wrote the phrase she needed on a piece of paper and folded it into her purse. Full guardianship review required under State Code 68.4C. She gripped my hand like a lifeline. Maybe it was. I've stopped counting the months since Linwood. They don't own my time anymore. Sometimes I walk past their building. From a distance. It looks smaller now. Just brick and glass and habit. I don't go inside. I don't need to. I already took everything back that matters. My name. My mind. My yes and no. So if you're reading this, and you've been told you're confused or inconvenient or too much trouble, if someone calls you delicate when they mean disposable, if someone smiles too sweetly and locks a door behind you, listen closely. You're not alone. You're not imagining it. And you don't need to be rescued to fight. Sometimes all it takes is one sentence, one note, one refusal to agree that silence is safety. Let them call it trouble. Let them call it resistance. Let them call it anything but gone. Because we're not. We're still here, still sharp, still dangerous. And if this story reminded you of someone, your grandmother, your neighbor, yourself, then don't just scroll past. Share it. Save it. Speak it. We've been quiet long enough.